Why praising kids too much makes them afraid to try. We rarely notice the moment it happens. There is no argument, no tears, no warning sign. One day your child simply stops trying. They pause before raising their hand. They hesitate before starting something new. They look at you first, instead of looking at themselves. And most parents never realize why. Because it didn't begin with criticism. It began with praise. Praise that sounded loving. Praise that felt supportive. Praise that quietly taught a dangerous lesson. Trying starts to feel risky. Mistakes feel louder than effort. Struggle feels like failure. So your child learns to protect themselves. They learn to wait. They learn to choose what feels safe. From the outside, it can look like maturity. It can look like calm. It can look like good behavior. But inside, it is fear wearing a quiet face. What if the way you praise your child is not building confidence, but teaching them to avoid the very thing confidence needs most? Trying. In this video, we'll uncover why praising kids too much can backfire, and how it quietly creates pressure, dependence, and fear. Stay with me until the end, because the final insight explains why some children stop trying long before they stop caring. Chapter 1. When praise becomes a signal. At first, praise feels like the safest thing in the world. It feels like warmth. It feels like love that cannot hurt. So you say the words most parents say, because you mean well.
You're so smart. You're amazing. You always do it right. You're the best.
And your child lights up. They smile. They stand taller. But something else starts happening too. Something quiet. Your child begins to listen for praise, the way a thirsty person listens for water. They stop checking how they feel inside and start checking your face, your tone, your eyes, your pause. Because praise is no longer just a compliment. It becomes a signal.
I am safe. I am enough. I am loved.
So the child learns a habit. Before they feel proud, they look at you. Before they trust their own judgment, they wait for you. Not with words at first. With a glance. With a quiet need.
Is this good? Did I do it right?
And the more often praise becomes the answer, the more your child forgets how to answer themselves. They stop asking.
Do I feel proud?
And they start asking.
Did you notice?
That is the first crack in confidence. Because confidence is meant to live inside the child. But constant praise slowly moves it outside. Now their confidence has a location. And that location is you. So when you are there, they feel strong. When you are silent, they feel unsure. Because they were never trained to feel their own success. They were trained to wait for it. And this is why praising kids too much is dangerous. Not because praise is bad, but because it can replace something essential. Self-belief. A child who depends on praise will struggle when life becomes quiet. School will not clap for every effort. The world will not always say good job. And when that applause disappears,
I don't know if I'm doing okay anymore.
not because they are lazy, but because they were taught to run on approval instead of learning how to fuel themselves. So chapter 1 is simple. If praise becomes the source of confidence, your child will fear anything that might shut that source off, including trying. Chapter 2. When praise turns into pressure. At first, praise feels like motivation. It sounds like encouragement. But over time, praise begins to carry weight. When a child is praised again and again for being smart, good, or talented, they absorb a quiet rule.
I must stay this way.
Not because anyone says it out loud, but because the message keeps repeating. This is who you are. This is what makes us proud. So the child starts protecting the image. Mistakes stop feeling normal. They start feeling dangerous. A wrong answer no longer feels like learning. It feels like proof something is slipping. Every test carries tension. Every decision feels watched. Not to grow, but to maintain. So the child becomes careful. They hesitate before trying. They wait until they are sure. They stop raising their hand when unsure. They stop trying new things in front of others. Not because they lack ability, but because praise taught them that being wrong has a cost.
Disappointment. Silence. A change in tone.
So the safest option becomes clear.
Don't risk it. Don't fail.
From the outside, this can look like discipline, even focus. But inside it is pressure. Pressure to stay perfect. Pressure to never fall below expectations. And when children live under pressure, they don't become confident. They become cautious. They choose safe paths instead of meaningful ones. Because praise taught them something powerful. Being wrong is not safe. And when a child fears being wrong, they do not become excellent. They become careful. Chapter 3. When praise creates a fixed mindset. Some praise sounds harmless, almost kind.
You're so smart.
It feels positive. It feels encouraging. But hidden inside that sentence is a message a child slowly absorbs.
Success comes from who I am, not from what I do.
So when things go well, the child feels safe.
I am smart. This fits who I am.
But when something goes wrong, another thought appears.
Maybe I'm not smart after all.
Now the child begins protecting the label. They choose tasks they already know. They prefer easy wins over real growth. They avoid challenges that might expose struggle. Not because they dislike learning, but because learning now feels risky.
Trying means revealing limits. Struggling means threatening who I am.
So curiosity changes shape. They don't want to be the child who tries. They want to be the child who already knows. Slowly, progress slows down. Not loudly, quietly. Because growth requires discomfort. Being bad before getting better. Staying with uncertainty. But a fixed identity cannot tolerate discomfort. So the child freezes. Praise meant to lift them up ends up holding them still. That is the danger of identity-based praise. It teaches children to protect who they are, instead of discovering who they could become. And when progress stops, it rarely looks like failure. It looks like comfort. It looks like stability. But inside, learning has quietly slowed down. Because praise taught the child to value being right, more than being brave. And that is where growth quietly ends. Chapter 4. When praise teaches performance instead of effort. At some point, praise stops being about growth and starts being about appearance.
Look how well you behaved. Everyone noticed how good you were. You made us proud today.
Slowly, the child learns something important.
Being loved is about how I look, how I act, how I perform.
Not about how I feel, not about who I am inside. So the child begins managing impressions.
Smile when you're upset. Nod when you're confused. Say what sounds right.
Because honesty feels risky, and performance feels safe. From the outside, you see a good child. Polite, calm, responsible. Inside, that child is working constantly.
Working to stay pleasing. Working to stay acceptable. Working to stay worthy.
And performance is exhausting. When children learn that love follows behavior, they become very good at pleasing others. But they remain beginners at understanding themselves.
They suppress frustration. They hide doubt. They ignore what they feel.
Because showing the wrong feeling might change how they are seen. So effort becomes invisible. Struggle becomes private. And growth becomes shallow. Praise taught them how to act, but never how to feel. And a child who performs for love will slowly lose touch with themselves. Not because they are weak, but because they were rewarded for hiding. Chapter 5. When praise kills curiosity. Curiosity begins with freedom. Freedom to wonder. Freedom to ask. Freedom to be unsure. But praise tied only to results slowly takes that freedom away. When children are praised mainly for outcomes, they begin avoiding questions that might expose confusion.
What if I'm wrong? What if I don't understand?
So they stop experimenting. They stop exploring unfamiliar paths. They stop trying ideas that might fail. Because failure no longer feels like learning. It feels like embarrassment. Curiosity becomes selective. They choose areas where they already shine. They avoid places where struggle is likely. A child who once loved discovering, now only loves being right. Not because curiosity disappeared, but because fear quietly replaced it.
Fear of being wrong. Fear of disappointing you. Fear of losing approval.
But curiosity needs room to stumble, permission to fail, safety in not knowing. When praise is tied only to success, children protect their image instead of their curiosity. Learning may still happen, but it becomes shallow. They may look capable. They may perform well. But growth slows where it matters most. Because real growth lives inside struggle. And a child who is afraid to look imperfect will never explore their full potential. Chapter 6. When praise weakens resilience. Resilience is built in discomfort. It grows when effort continues without guarantees. When progress feels slow. When success is uncertain. But constant praise can quietly remove that space. When children are praised too often, they begin expecting encouragement before effort. They wait for reassurance. They look outward for motivation. They move only when it feels rewarding.
Difficulty feels uncomfortable. Struggle feels unnecessary. Persistence feels optional.
So when things don't come easily, they stop. Not because they can't continue, but because they were never taught how. They were trained to move forward, only when someone was cheering. Then one day, the cheering stops. School becomes harder. Friendships grow complicated. Life becomes quiet. And without praise, the child feels lost.
Why does this feel so hard? Why do I feel stuck? Is something wrong with me?
But nothing is wrong with them. They simply were not given enough chances to build strength in silence. Resilience grows when effort continues, even when it doesn't feel good. But praise taught them to expect reward first. So when rewards disappear, they don't know how to keep going. Not because they are weak, but because they were never allowed to struggle without applause. And without struggle, resilience never had a chance to grow. Chapter 7. When praise traps identity. Praise often comes with labels. They sound positive. They sound affirming.
You're the smart one. You're the kind one. You're the responsible one.
At first, these labels feel comforting. They give a child a sense of place. But over time, they become a cage.
A smart child feels shame when confused. A kind child feels guilt when angry. A responsible child feels fear when they want rest.
So the child begins protecting the label. They hide emotions that don't fit. They avoid situations that might expose struggle. They adjust their behavior to stay consistent. Not because they are dishonest, but because being real feels risky.
I should stay the version they praise, not the version that feels true.
Slowly, the child stops exploring who they are and focuses on maintaining who they are supposed to be. And when a child cannot be real at home, they search for identity elsewhere. Praise that labels does not free a child. It confines them. What looks like encouragement quietly limits growth. Because identity should be discovered, not assigned. And a child trapped inside praise will struggle to meet themselves without it. Final thought. Your child does not need more praise. They need to feel safe trying, safe to be unsure, safe to struggle, safe to fail without losing love. Confidence is not built by applause. It is built when effort is seen, when mistakes are allowed, when emotions are accepted without conditions, when children know they are valued. Even on their hardest days, they learn something powerful.
I can try. I can be wrong. And I am still enough.
So the question is not how much you praise your child. The question is this: are you giving them permission to try, or teaching them to wait until success feels guaranteed? Because the way you respond to effort, failure, and uncertainty becomes the voice they hear when no one else is there. And that voice will shape how they face the world long after childhood has passed. If this video gave you something to think about, and these conversations matter to you, subscribe and stay with us for more thoughtful videos like this.